Good afternoon, my name is Carmen Ramirez,
Italy, Venezuela.
Eric Salazar.
Cesar Verdugo.
and today we're going to present the history of the border.
So, as you can see here in the two pictures, there's a big difference because in 1898, the border was still not established because it was legal just to cross walking. But now, it was built so it separates both countries.
So, First Nation of the U.S.-Mexican border. Some of the First Nations were the Hohokam and the Trincheras. The first border they faced was established for trade, and they trade baskets, corn, and frijoles. And these two nations were divided by the border. And the main problem they faced was discrimination and lack of opportunities. This is an image where you can see where are the Hohokam, and most of the Hohokam are in the United States here, and some of them are here, are in Mexico. And here is a map where it shows where are the trincheras, and most of the trincheras are in Mexico, and some of them are in the part of US, and they are divided by the border.
The Mexican-American War. The Mexican-American War started in April 1846 and ended on February 1848. The U.S. commander was Secretary Taylor, and he was the commander of the U.S. soldiers. The Mexican commander was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, and he was usually known as the Napoleon. Many Mexicans think that he was a traitor because he sold part of Mexico's land to the United States. The U.S. was fighting for the land of Mexico, which now is Texas, New Mexico, California, and Arizona. The Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848. The Treaty of Guadalupe in 1848 gave end to the Mexican-American War. Now, what the border has to do with the Mexican-American War is that now that the border has been established, they both know which is their part of land, and they know they should not be fighting for any other party. This is the Treaty of Guadalupe, and it was signed by the two presidents, James K. Polk and Jose Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. These are the total lands which United States took, and it was Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, half of Colorado, and part of Wyoming.
The Chinese Exclusion Act. President Chester A. Arthur started this law on May 6, 1882. The Chinese Exclusion Act is a federal law that states that Chinese cannot immigrate or be in the U.S. The Chinese collaborated to build the Transcontinental Railroad that started in the East Coast and ended on the West Coast of the United States. Also, some of the Chinese came to the gold mines because they were gold seekers and they had economical issues back on China. Another reason of why the Chinese came to the U.S. was because there was an explosion of population and shortage of food in China. The law was established because the people feared the Chinese would take over the jobs and that they would threaten society. The way this act affected the border was that there was more security because the military officers didn't let any Chinese cross, and sometimes they needed to use brutal force. Also, the Chinese could only stay in the U.S. if they had their legal papers, but the ones who didn't were deported back to China. This is the law that was signed by President Chester A. Arthur. Prohibition in the United States. The prohibition was a law that prohibited the sale, manufacture, and transport of alcohol into the U.S. The prohibition law was started by President Herbert Hoover the year 1920, and the law ended on 1933. The border was affected because the security increased because when you were going to cross, the military officers would stop you and check your card. And so it was difficult to cross without being caught with alcohol on your possession. Also, the results of both sides was that the border increases, and the alcohol was smuggled through Canada and through the Great Lakes. Also, when the prohibition started in the U.S., in Mexico, alcohol was still legal, so it was smuggled to the U.S., especially through Nogales. And here is an example of how the alcohol was smuggled through the border.
Tunnels of the U.S. and Mexico border. What does the tunnels affect the border? Immigrants and drugs. Why? Because it affects that they need more protection and want to put a higher wall. Some of the things the coyotes cross through the tunnels are drugs, immigrants to the U.S., and guns. Nogales has been the most popular place for drug smugglers across the U.S.-Mexico border. U.S. authorities have found 100 drugs tunnels in the city since 1990, more than any other location along 2,000-mile United States and Mexico border.
So this is a table that shows the name of the tunnels that were discovered, and this is the date they were discovered. This is where they were found, and this is who found it, and this is if the case was known or not known, or complete or incomplete.
Nearly 170 tunnels have been found since 1990, most along the Arizona-California border with Mexico. Making these jobs can be dangerous, so the U.S. Border Patrol is using the latest technology in the underground. Camera-equipped rovers that can do the job in a fraction of the time. January 25, 2006, a tunnel was found on the U.S.-Mexico border by the Joint U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. The tunnel measured 2,400 feet or 730 meters long. The tunnel runs from a warehouse near the Tijuana airport to a warehouse in San Diego. When it was discovered, it contained 2 short tons and 1,800 kilograms of marijuana. November 20, 2010. The tunnel measured 2,600 feet or 800 meters long. The tunnel was discovered linking Tijuana to Old Mesa, California. In the same month, another tunnel was discovered between the two cities. Both tunnels were discovered by the San Diego Task Force and are believed to be the work of the Mexican Sinaloa Cabinet. October 30, 2013. The U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement shows a tunnel linking warehouses in Tijuana, Mexico, and San Diego to smuggle drugs. The tunnel is equipped with electricity, ventilation, and a rail system, making one of the most sophisticated secret passages discovered around the U.S.-Mexico border. As we can see, we saw the picture of the tunnel that was found that I mentioned you. For example, this one is found in October 30, 2013. This was found on November 20, 2010. This was found on January 25, 2006. And this is one of the tunnels found in 1990. And this picture is this one is the robot that can see the robot. They had the camera in order to see the tunnel. And this is when they found the marijuana.
The summary. The history of the border has to do with our history and our ancestors knew what it was like to be living in a border town with just barbed wire fence that was usually for trade and not to immigrate.